Coach Greg Hunter, Blue and Gold News. So, give us a lay of the land since you took the job. You've got most of your roster, practice starting, pieces coming together. What do you see?
Yeah, it's been fast, fast and furious. We were just talking about that as a staff, just before I walked up here. Just how quickly everything's happened. Summers came and went, and what we were able to kind of put together and add, and so feel good about that. The summers are always good for our guys. They don't have a ton of academic responsibility, so they can, you get a chance to kind of slow some things down for them on the floor. You get 8 hours a week, 4 on the floor, 4 with your strength and conditioning coach. But more than anything, you just get a chance to kind of get to know each other a little bit. Try to become familiar just with your terminology. It's no different than football. You have a lot of the same concepts, same actions, but you call them different phrases. So I always felt like coming into the summer and going out of the summer, if you get a chance to spend some time with each other, get to know each other a little bit, and then just try to get a baseline understanding of at least what should be happening, it's a pretty good summer if you can accomplish that. And then when you get into the fall, when you get a little more practice time, that's when you can really, really, really start like creating the habits necessarily. But to start, you at least just want them to know what they're supposed to be doing, even if they can't quite execute it right away.
John Antoniuk, WVUSports.com. You're building a team. Do you build from the inside out, the outside in, best available? How do you put it all together?
It's a good question. For us, what you try to do is, what we've tried to always do is you'd like to build, you have to have a baseline experience with college athletics, and with the nature of it, you're going to have so much turnover. But guys that have won, and been part of winning programs, and you look at, Honor Huff won the NIT, Big Harlan played in the NCAA tournament, Jackson Fields played in the NCAA tournament, Morris played in the NCAA tournament as a freshman. Chance has won 20 games every year he's been in college. So you're trying to get, DJ won a lot of high school games, and so they have an experience with winning. They kind of understand that part of it and what winning takes, and then you're just trying to get them to understand, like, okay, now how are we going to win? How are we going to win together? But you don't have to teach them how to win necessarily. So you kind of start there, and then some of it is you do the best you can assembling it, and then when you get them all together, you kind of figure out, like, okay, well, this team's strengths are this. These are the weaknesses we got to address, and build it from there.
And the junior college experience of building from scratch, I guess it's invaluable.
Yeah. I think there was a time, maybe there was a negative stereotype associated with like junior colleges and junior college coaches, and I've mentioned this before, man. I got my first head coaching job when I was 25, and coached against like some legendary Hall of Fame coaches that to the common person, those names don't mean much, but they mean everything to me, and they easily could have been sitting in this chair right here, but it was just, maybe just like, well, they only have guys for a year or two. Can they really take 4-year guys and develop them? And now it's obviously it's flipped, where every year you're going to have high roster turnover. You're going to be trying to merge a group of guys together, and how quickly can you get them to come together, playing for one purpose and one reason, and also trying to help them accomplish what their individual dreams are, which is very junior college in nature as well. Like, you're trying to win games in junior college, but then you're trying to help those guys get to this level, and it's no different now. These guys have professional aspirations, which you want to try to certainly help them achieve those, but it's got to be within the concept of what you're doing as a team.
Last thing, you got to be resourceful, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And, relationships, you got to lean on those. You got to be able to, trust people, what they're telling you, what you're getting, and who you're getting as a person. More importantly, is anything, we we like to get guys that love basketball, like legitimately love it, and then love other people. And if you have someone that really loves basketball and they love their teammates, then they're able to overcome kind of the adversities that come throughout the course of a season.
Keenan Cummings, WVSports.com, you mentioned putting together the roster. Do you think it's complete at this point? You think you guys will try to add another? How are you looking at it?
Yeah, we still have one scholarship, and we're working on that, daily, and we do plan on using it for the fall with this class.
Do you have a position in mind, or is it really best available? Or?
At this point in time, you're trying to best available more than anything. I mean, I think, commonly most basketball fans look at rosters and like they always want you to add another big guy, which I get. But I always have to remind people there's usually only one really big guy out there on the floor at a time, and there's usually three little guys. So, we have pretty good balance on our roster as it is. So just trying to add, the right person as much as anything, the right player.
The high school kid you got that you just announced, walk us through that. That was a pretty good find late in the year.
Yeah, Amir. Feel really fortunate for that. It was a situation where he originally intended on doing another prep year, but like a lot of these guys, and I guess you guys cover football too, I'm sure you see like a lot of those guys now they have so many credits they could really graduate as juniors, if they wanted to. So it was more a matter of just him becoming comfortable with the opportunity that we had for him, and just kind of went really hard and really aggressive with him, and we're excited to add him. I mean, he's a good player. He's another guy. He's won multiple state championships, played at a really high level AAU program, and a guy that makes other people better by being around them. So feel fortunate to be able to add him when we added him.
Coach, Justin Jackson with the Dominion Post, sort of along that, I've always kind of wondered, getting a kid to graduate early, it's not really a new thing anymore. Obviously worked out for Cooper Flagg last year, and as well as some other guys. At the same point, how difficult or unusual is it to ask a 17-year-old kid, to give up a year of high school to go to college early? I mean, there's probably some weirdness to it.
It can be. And every situation is a little different. All those situations, depending on when their birthdays are, some guys are a little older. Some guys, like, for instance, I have a July birthday, but I graduated early when I was 17. My son, he has a July birthday too, but he's back, so he's like old. So if I was to come out of high school early, I would have came out like legitimately at a 17, but if he comes out early, he would come out at an 18-year-old. So each situation is a little different. And I think the biggest thing with, Amir was that he was mentally ready, and feels that he can contribute at this level, which we obviously believe in that as well. And as much as a physical component to it, it's really just like mentally, are they ready to step out there, and we felt like he was, and his family certainly felt that way as well, and look forward to getting him here in the fall.
The other kind of question I thought was interesting is with the Chance and his situation where you guys went to the NCAA for. I'm just gonna. Have you ever dealt with like NCAA issues like that?
Yeah, we've through the years, you're always kind of dealing with some waiver processes, some for different reasons. They're all kind of like uniquely, individually based. And, with the information that we had, we felt like he had a very strong case. Our compliance office worked really hard at it as well. And so it's not always the case, but sometimes there are like really, really gray areas that you leave up, no pun intended, but you leave up to chance. But with this situation, like, we felt pretty confident, like, just this is what happened, this is what it was. You had the supporting materials and documentations, and we felt strongly all along that that's what would happen.
I'm sure you know, but there's been other WVU coaches here in the past, recent, that have said the same thing. Oh, we got a good case, we got the documentation, and it didn't work out their ways. I'm
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know those ones.
Well, I guess what like with Jan's situation, the COVID year is gone.
Yes.
Now, so does that? And I know you don't have a ton of freshmen you're bringing in, but in future years, when freshmen are coming in, does redshirting become more of an issue now, or because, like with Chance, he lost a year by
Yeah.
playing 5 minutes over
Yeah.
8 games, and it cost him a year basically that he got back.
Yes.
But I mean that since there's not that 5th year of eligibility.
Well, there's not the 5th year, and then again, just candidly speaking, the chances of bringing a high school kid in, redshirting them, seeing them develop from one year to the next to the next to the next, all the way through of having them in your program for 5 years is probably not going to happen until some things change, if they change. But again, I think it's all kind of case by case, and if you had a freshman and the family and they just didn't feel like he was ready, or maybe there wasn't going to be any minutes available for him, then maybe you do consider it, because you don't want to put a student athlete in that situation either, where they're playing minimally and they're losing the year for it as well on your end.
That's a tough call, right?
It is.
I mean, yeah.
It is.
Has this current climate forced you to be more efficient and on point? Because you may not have them for 4 years. You got to do it right away.
Yeah, you're kind of like, you're running marathons at sprinters' paces, and so you just have to be really efficient is a good word. You have to be really efficient with your time. You have to be purposeful. You have to be very intentional with your days, because they count. They've always counted, but they really, really count now, because you don't get them back, and you have these guys. Our senior class, you only have them for a very short amount of time, and so you have to be very purposeful, very intentional, and very efficient with what you're doing with them on a daily basis.
And I tie that back to junior college.
Correct.
Same deal.
Correct. It's like I always say, like, basketball's a simple game, but it can be hard to execute it, and so you try to keep it as simple as you can for them, and kind of have your non-negotiables, like, hey, these are the things that we're not budging on, and then again, I'm learning them too, learning what their biggest strengths are, what are some of their weaknesses that maybe didn't show up on film, what are maybe some things they can do better that because of the last roster that they had, they didn't need them to do there, but they can actually do those things well for us. So it's a lot of learning.
So what is that learning for especially the guys that you didn't coach? You only coached a couple, so some of those new guys. What are you seeing now that you've got them on the floor?
Yeah, they really support each other. They've got great hearts. They've been great teammates. They're willing learners. They want to do what we're asking them to do. They can't always do it right now, but they actually want to get it, I say. And in my experience, if guys want to get it, like if they really want to get it, they usually do. It's the guys that resist a little bit or push back on you a little bit or kind of fight it. Well, you ain't going to get it. But, this group's been very supportive of each other. They work really hard. They care about basketball, and they're excited to go on this journey.
Hey, Ross, you mentioned the big guys. I think if people look at your roster, that's probably where their eyes go, right?
Yeah.
Impossible to answer, like, by the time the first game you play. But you mentioned all the things that can go on between then and now. How do you feel about where you start now, or where you've been starting now, and then how that progresses with who you have to have an inside presence by the time you guys do play?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have, obviously Harlan is, really big, and he's had a good summer. He's worked really hard on his conditioning and worked really hard on his body. Coach Martinez has done a great job with him. And then you kind of have your more, versatile, combo type of forwards, Brennan Lorient, Jackson Fields, DJ Thomas, and all those guys. They give you an opportunity. You can just play different ways. You could play big. I mean, we could actually throw out some really, really big collective lineups. For instance, if you were going to throw Jasper 6'3", Trayson's 6'5", Chance is 6'5", Belo's 6'8", Harlan's 7 foot. Or even if Harlan wasn't in and it was Jackson, and you had a lineup like that, like, yeah, maybe you're not playing with 2 7-footers, but your collective size across the board positionally is really, really good. So that's what I like about our roster is you could play small, you could play big, you could play a couple forwards, you could downsize and play a little more of the modern basketball game nowadays and kind of play more 4 perimeter type of players around one big guy. So, feel comfortable with our size where it is.
It seems like the days of having like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 probably over, but you also don't need to play that way if you don't want to. I guess, is that more important for you to have that flexibility offensively or defensively, where you can
Both.
match up?
Yeah, both. And I think what you got to be able, offensively, you got to be able to find kind of like leverage points of the defense, whether it's through mismatches and post-ups or dribble, drive, or, you're trying to find a way that who can make somebody get 2 people on the ball, and then you got to be able to play from there. But like you said, that can be a lot of different ways and a lot of different positions, and then defensively, yeah, the more versatile defensively you are, the more guys that can defend multiple positions, the harder you're going to make it on the offense because then you don't have to put 2 people on the ball. So it's important both ways.
Do you feel comfortable with your defensive versatility?
I do. Yeah, I really do. Yeah, I do. So we've got good length, intelligent players, and guys that can move.
Coach, Cody Nesper, Golden Blue Nation. Other than the 2 guys from North Texas, were there any connections on this team, or was it kind of like they got here and they're strangers?
Basketball is a unique sport. It's kind of like life, I guess you could say, in some ways. I mean, there is like a 6 degrees of separation or whatever they say. I mean, it is a small industry if you think about it. There's 300 and I don't even know now, what is it, 364 or 5 or 3? I know it bounces around. There's 364 Division I teams, 3 or 4 assistants on each team. So it is a small industry. So usually know somebody that knows somebody that's, familiar or around them. So you don't know them as intimately as like you do like the 2 guys that came with us because you've actually been with them in the locker room and you've been through the hard times and the good times and the ups and downs of a season. But you do try to, as much as you can, ask those hard questions, So you know as much as you can about who you're getting. As a player, that's kind of the easy part of it because you can watch synergy and you can watch film, but more importantly, who are you getting as a person is what you try to find out the most going into recruiting.
Trish, go ahead.
You're stepping up from Group of 5 or whatever it might be to the big time. You have players going from junior college to here. How do you keep yourself and them from thinking of Power 4 basketball being bigger than it is? I mean, almost being off for a little while.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Basketball, the game of basketball itself is what it is. I think anytime you move up, you sit in situations like this. Now I'm sitting in a room full of, how many people are in here? 15? So you get, you have kind of like more of these duties, more of these responsibilities. But so many of these guys nowadays, they've played against these players since they were young, whether it's AAU, whether it's high school, whether it's prep school, they've played against them. And then even, coming from, again, whatever you kind of want to, the Group of 5 or Power 4, most all of us have been in situations where we've played against teams through the years, that we're at this level. So you understand like that part of it. I think sometimes it can just be what comes along with it, the attention, good or bad, the scrutiny, good or bad, and just that part of it. But like the basketball part of it, once you step between the lines, that part doesn't change much, as far as like what we believe wins and what it takes to win.
To succeed at this level, you have to have a rather large ego, I would assume. Does that work into it too? The idea that I am as good as Larry Bird or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think for myself, I think it's about putting like a staff together that you really believe in, and a team that you believe in. People that kind of, make up for your weaknesses, and maybe enhance some of your strengths. And I think that's where your like confidence comes from, and then putting a team together that you believe in and players that you believe in, and then I do believe there's a way to win games. Every game you go into, there is a way to win that game. Now, depending on who you're playing and where you're playing them, can significantly impact how difficult it actually is to win that game. But there's a way to win the game. You just got to find it, and you got to believe in it, and you got to go execute it. Again, where you're playing, who you're playing against, it can be more difficult, but there's still a way to win that game.
So speaking of stepping up, Honor and Tracian were high-end scorers at a lower level. What have you seen out of them so far? Do you have confidence that they could still be very good offensively in a Power 5 level?
Yeah, because the thing that both those guys can really do is shoot the basketball, which typically translates, and they can both shoot it with range. So, they've done that. They're learning, the defensive part of how we do things, and that part is learning. But they've had a good summer. Both have worked really hard. Their bodies have changed, which is a big part of what you want to try to get accomplished in the summer. Some guys need to get stronger. Some guys need to lose a little bit, but they've done that, and expect them to be. They're good players. They're good players, and expect them to be good players for us.
Back to the efficiency thing. The sooner you get answers, the better, I guess. And so right now, you view the summer maybe a little bit differently with a whole new roster than you would if you had guys back. Is that fair?
Yes, but even as recent as the last few years, if you just look at for what we've been dealing with since the portal, I think we had 3 guys back last year, maybe 4 at North Texas. So you still had 8, 9 new players, and 2 of the players that were back played. A couple others didn't play. So again, it is kind of the new norm that we've all had to deal with. And I think if you're in a situation like a Houston or someone like that, or the Texas Tech even, and you're able to bring back 3 or 4 players even, like that feels like you've brought back dang near your whole roster now. Like if you got 4 guys back that played, you're like, man. So, but it is a good point, and I do think like it's not hard. It's kind of like an oxymoron. Like it is hard to get better when you're just playing against yourself every day.
Well, ask us because in Rich's case in football, he said had he been a little bit more efficient and better, he thought he had a good team at Jack State, but it took him 4 or 5 games to realize that. And so he's got to figure out a way to speed that up and make that work faster. I guess that works the same way with you in your deal too, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think, the difference between like a football and basketball, for instance, is, you can challenge yourself in the non-conference in basketball, and you can maybe take a couple licks here and there that anyone ever intends on losing any game we play, but you can lose a couple, and you can learn from those situations. You can grow, you can get better. Unfortunately for football, you lose a couple games in your non-league, you can't even play for a national championship. Basketball, you can depending on the difficulty of your schedule and how hard it is, you could lose 3, 4, 5 non-league games, and still have everything you want ahead of you in the postseason play.
With your team last year, were you comfortable knowing what they were in December and January, or did it take a while?
Yeah, but by that time, I think you can get a pretty good understanding of people's strengths and weaknesses, and just what you're searching for is a collective understanding of what you're trying to do on every possession. And from a team standpoint, you guys mentioned Honor and Trayson. I do think one of the hardest things to coach is like shot selection for a young player in particular, trying to figure out like, why does he get to shoot that shot, but I don't get to shoot that shot, And the truth is, like, shot selection is not an equal opportunity. But I think if instead of me having to explain to that, like, once the group gets the collective understanding of like, oh, that's a really good shot for Honor, whether he makes it or misses it, but that may not be as good a shot for Jasper. And you just start figuring out, like, okay, what do we want to get accomplished on each possession on both ends of the floor? And, you just got to go through some of that trial and error and be in close games together more than anything. These guys have played a ton of college basketball. I mean, they've been in close games, but it's just like being in close games together and kind of having that spirit and understanding of, okay, like we're going to find out a way to win this game.
Coach, I kind of get that, every season tells a new story, and, every season is unique in a certain way, but, you're talking about some of the guys that you guys have brought up from the smaller school level to the bigger level, head coaches kind of going through that same journey. In that sense, does it feel like this is maybe kind of a unique kind of story that you guys are about to write this year, in the sense that maybe, you're all in the same boat of, having to prove yourself at this, bigger school kind of level?
Yeah, I've felt like I've had to prove myself basically every time I've ever stepped on a floor, as a player, as an assistant, as a head coach, as a competitor. I mean, I think you're always, on some level, stepping into situations like, every that's what I love about sports more than anything. The thing I love about sports more than anything is, no matter what anyone thinks, anybody thinks about this school, or, well, this school's supposed to beat this school because that school's this school and that school's, like, you actually get to step in between the lines, with officials and figure out who's better that night, and I've been in lots of situations through my career both ways, where we went into a game and whoever it was thought we should have won that game, and we didn't, and then there's been lots of other times on the other end where people thought we had no chance to win games because your mind, and a lot of times it is just your mind. It's like mentally we think, well, this school, that school's name is that, and this school's name is this, and that school's supposed to beat that school, and I've always tried to not allow myself either way. If we're playing whoever, and just, we're West Virginia and they're school A, and everyone thinks that we're supposed to win because our jersey says West Virginia, like, I fight tooth and nail against that, and we don't prepare any different. We don't allow ourselves to think any different. And then it's going to be the same way if we're playing some other team that anyone outside of that locker room thinks that they're supposed to beat us just because that's their name and our name is, like, again, that's the beauty of sports. You actually get to go see on that night, who's the better team.
It's interesting because, when you're at the JUCO level, working your way up, and then you had to think that way.
Yeah.
Right? Now you're sort of on the other.
Yeah, and I've
side
been,
of it,
like I said, I've been really been in all situations, like even in like junior college, I coached the number 1 team in the country, with the best players, 10, 12 high-level Division I players, and every night we stepped on the floor, we were supposed to win, and then took over situations, whether it was an assistant or, being an assistant at Southern Miss, and we got an at-large bid at the University of Southern Mississippi, and beat Memphis and South Florida and Arizona State, and like people think there's no way in the world that you should be able to get an at-large bid at Southern Miss, but we did, and he took over programs. And again, sometimes I've been the head coach, other times I've been the assistant, and that's the other beauty of being part of teams. Everybody's role is equally important. We all have different roles, but nobody's more important than the next person. I'm not more important than anybody because I'm the head coach. My role is I have a role, and I need to do that well, but it's no different than our 13th man is just as important as our leading scorer. They just have different roles. And so I've kind of been on every gamut that you can be in. When we first got the job at Arkansas State, we were 23.5 point underdogs against Georgetown, and we beat them. Nobody else thought we were going to beat them. We did, and then we've been in other situations where we've been 15-point favorites and we've got beat. So try to do the best, like to answer your original question, really to try to just block out any thought of what should be happening and just kind of pour your heart into the game plan and the details and execution and go play.
I know you haven't. I don't know if you've taken your family vacation yet or when you plan to, but when you're on vacation, are you there thinking, okay, what's McCaslin doing? What's Bill Self doing? What's Drew doing? Or do you put that away and compartmentalize that?
I talk to Grant regularly, so I know what he's doing. But no, not really. Don't spend a lot of time, trying to figure out what other people are doing.
How we get better?
We gotta. Yeah, I mean, now you're always figuring. Now I spend a ton of time on that.
Okay.
We're always trying to figure out like how we can get better, how we can get better as individuals, how we can get better collectively. And that's what you're doing at this time period right now. As much as you're trying to learn, you're just trying to figure, okay, what do we need to do to help Brennan Lorient get better, Jackson Fields get better? You're going through your roster, you're thinking about it. How can you make them as efficient as a player as you can? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What do we need to try to hone into that can be an advantage for us going into this season?
So that always is in your mind.
Yeah, they never. That's not really stopping. It doesn't really stop. Maybe in like a pickleball game or something at the house, like you get lost in that. But
Very rarely.
yeah, you're usually trying to figure out ways to, make people better.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of, again, why I was put in this position is to try to help other people. And if you can help other people achieve what they want to accomplish, whether it's your staff or your players, a byproduct of that is you usually end up being pretty successful yourself.
Is Grant as free with advice now that you're in the same league?
I mean, yeah, there's not a lot of secrets in the modern era of life. But yeah, no, he's been tremendous. As a lot of the coaches in the Big 12 have been. They've been awesome.
The rosters and the officers are now, you see a lot of teams have that director, player personnel, general manager. There's no one way to do it. You guys haven't at least witnessed something like that. How did you handle that? Did you split it up amongst everybody? Do you have a plan to do that in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of typically what you see, I don't know if we would go to a straight situation where you have like a general manager, like from a professional standpoint, where they legitimately are picking your personnel, managing the budget, managing the salary cap, and you're just like coaching the team. I don't foresee us going that route. You see a lot of different titles associated with coaching staffs because they're so big, but we try to be as cohesive as we can with our decision making, and try to be as inclusive with everybody and get feedback from everybody, and want as many people invested as we can in the decision making. So when we move forward, obviously, ultimately, I got to make the decision, and that lands on me, whatever decisions are made. But we do try to include as many people as we can in really every decision we make as a program.
In many ways, aren't you the general manager, like when it comes right down to it?
Some ways you could say that, if you wanted to, among many other titles that coaches, therapists, psychiatrists, relationship advice, all across the board. But yeah, you could say that.
The differences you talked about, maybe the similarities from one level to another. Has there been a moment where you stopped and like, wow, this is pretty cool? Is it, I don't know, the access to Nike stuff? Is it the practice facility? Is it
A little bit.
something that made you go, wow, this is
A little bit of everything. I mean, obviously, the first time we played in the Coliseum, but I had never seen the practice facility until I actually came for the interview. So yeah, I mean, the first time you walked into this facility, I was amazed at the vision that they had when they built it to be as forward thinking that when you walk into it, it still looks like it's brand new, even though it's been built, for what, 12, 13 years now. But it still looks as modern as anyone else's that are being built, right now. And then I think the cool moments are, when you're around town, or, in anywhere within the state, really, just the passion that people have for WVU athletics and the men's basketball program. You definitely have some you can feel how important it is and how much it matters to people.
Coach, one of the hotter topics over the summer, earlier in the summer, was whether or not the tournament was going to expand. I think that's been kind of tabled for the moment. Just wondering what your thoughts might be on 68 versus whatever, 72 or 76. Or...
Yeah, I don't have a lot of thoughts between everything that we've been talking about, like getting this roster together, getting this staff together, finding a place to live, get my I haven't spent much time on that one. Yeah, I haven't. I mean, whatever people think is what's best. Any time you can provide more opportunities for student athletes, it's probably better. But again, I'm not going to get into the semantics of it and the pros and cons of it. Honestly, haven't thought a lot about it.
Ross, is your staff complete right now? Or are you still looking at guys? Or?
Still, we have one position open, and plan on filling it soon.
Coach Taylor Kennedy, Charles Gazette Mail. In regards to your coaching, in regards to your relationship philosophy, how has that kind of evolved in this new day and age of the transfer portal, and how has that kind of carried over here to WVU?
What do you mean specifically?
Like how you approach new players with guys that you're familiar with and stuff like that.
Yeah. Again, you kind of tap back into your junior college roots and Division II roots, and there has to be a sense of urgency kind of associated with everything you're doing, even like relationship building. You don't have 4 years to kind of take some time and get to know people, and you still want it to be as organic as it can. You don't want it to be forced, but yeah, you have to be intentional and get to know guys and try to build trust in a short amount of time. I think a lot of that you can help expedite that process by the recruiting process, and who you bring in. Again, who are they as people? What interests do they have? Making sure their interests are aligned with, our interest as a program and as a university and as a state. And then you find that common ground and you can kind of build from there.
Can you go into a grocery store unnoticed yet?
No.
Done.
No.
It's over.
No. Maybe if I put like a baseball hat on and, but
Those days are over.
pretty much. But it's been all good.
on the staff. You have 5 assistants, right?
We have, yes, but again, like with titles and stuff, you can be pretty flexible with role allocation regardless, even if you're calling this person an assistant coach, this person your video coordinator, this person. Like, I just kind of call them. We just have kind of decided until we get everybody here that they're all kind of assistants.
So you can get around Morgantown without your GPS, or do you still have to turn it on?
No, now my wife was just talking about this 2 days ago because she still gets stressed out trying to use the GPS. But I do not need a GPS anymore. But she ends up on those, cutting through downtown, and you're like thinking you're about to make a left in the GPS, but that's not that left. It's actually the next left, and there's a little curve there, and you're going in circles. But I feel pretty comfortable making my way around town now.
Well, that pothole you're dodging today, we were dodging. That part of it's
So when Brady sends you for pizza to some obscure place, you can find it?
Well, yeah, the first, so I don't remember what weekend. It was maybe in June, but I did ask Tony for a recommendation. He's giving me recommendations to some, but I went to, got some pizza at, is that Homegrown? Not Homegrown Pizza? Is that the name of it? Yeah. Yeah, down there. And so, but that was the day that it rained really, really, really hard. And we legitimately maybe should have had a boat to go get that pizza instead of drive. I mean, it was down there in the bottoms, and that was when it flooded really bad, and I think Fairmont and stuff, and we got that really, really bad weather. It was an adventure down there, but it was good pizza.
Coach, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank y'all.